We're going to go ahead and get started today, and I wanted to thank everyone for joining us and welcome. We're excited to have you with us for another Unitrends MSP live event. I'm Brian Doty. I'm the host, and I'm the channel development manager here for Unitrends MSP. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I share an awful lot about the MSP community, sales and marketing tips, also best practices for MSPs. So today we've got a great guest on with us. Today we've got Paul Green on with us, and he's going to talk about how to crank up your sales for your MSP practice. But before we begin, I just wanted to go over a couple quick housekeeping things. We're of course recording this, so we'll make a link available to you guys for playback in case you want to listen to it later, in case you missed a part. And when you joined, it's in listen only mode, but I really want to encourage everyone to go ahead and use the chat box or use the Q&A feature inside of Zoom to ask questions or interact with myself and Paul. We'll try to answer questions and things like as we go, but of course, we've got some time at the end for a Q&A. So without further ado, I wanted to just introduce Paul here. And Paul is an MSP marketing expert. He's based in the UK. He's worked with over 500 MSPs. Paul, I'm sorry I'm embarrassing you a little bit here, but you've got quite the resume, and you really are focused on helping MSPs improve their marketing and generate more leads. And I know you've got some background, and I don't want to go on too long. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Paul, to go ahead and jump in here.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for having me on this webinar. And hello to you. I'm not sure where, in fact, go into the chat box right now and just tell me whereabouts you're based. As you can hear from my accent, I'm based here in the UK, where we are enjoying a very sunny day, far sunnier than you'd expect for the UK at this time of year. It's just 6 p.m. in the evening here. So just go into the chat, please. Tell me where you are. Tell me what time it is where you are. And it would be lovely to say hello to you later on. So let me tell you a little bit more about me and why I'm here to present this webinar. So I'm an MSP marketing expert, and right now I work with 500 plus MSPs all over the world. In fact, we have more clients in the US than we do in the UK. And the service that I have is called the MSP Marketing Edge. We supply marketing content and tools, marketing tools to MSP, to all those MSPs that we work with. Now, I am not a tech. I've never owned an MSP. I've never run an MSP. I enjoy technology, but I do kind of glaze over a little bit when my clients start talking about PSAs and rubbing their thighs and all of that kind of stuff. I am a marketing guy. In fact, I started my career as a newspaper reporter and then a radio presenter. And I did that for 13 years in total, which was actually, that's my marketing background. I don't have a marketing degree either. All of the marketing I'm going to talk to you about in today's webinar is hard-won marketing. It's hard-won because it's stuff I've done either for myself or with my clients, and we've kind of learned the hard way. So I did that media career. That was awesome. I was the breakfast guy on the radio, and I did all of that stuff. And then in 2005, I had what's known as an entrepreneurial seizure. And if you've ever read a book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth Revisited, and if you haven't, go get that book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. In fact, Brian, as we're going along, why don't you, if you can find these books and things on Amazon and stick them in the chat link, I think that would be a great thing to do. So in 2005, I had this entrepreneurial seizure. And I decided I had to work for myself and start my own business. And you've probably had a very similar entrepreneurial seizure yourself. So I started a business which evolved into a healthcare marketing agency. We work with veterinarians, dentists and optometrists. That was a great business, and I sold that 5 years ago. And part of the deal when I sold it was that I couldn't work in those sectors for 5 years, which has just expired. So I looked at some of the other businesses I'd worked with over the years, and I thought, well, this IT support thing looks pretty good. And that's how I started. That's how I fell into this world. This is an awesome world. You literally have the best business model ever. There is no better business model. I've never come across businesses that lock in clients for so long and have so much monthly recurring revenue. It's just awesome. At the same time, I realized that most MSPs also have a series of big marketing problems, which is what we're going to talk about on this webinar. Let me just see where everyone is, just looking in the chat. So Brian's in Pittsburgh. We were just talking about Pittsburgh before. John Paul's in Washington, DC. Hi, John Paul. Massive fan of The West Wing. I'm just rewatching it again now. I've just got to about season 4, I think, which is where Aaron Sorkin's left and it goes off the boil a bit. But great to have you here. John's in Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, John. And Michael's in New York City, above Grand Central Station. You're kidding. That's an amazing location. I bet you pay like $1 million per square foot rent to be above Grand Central. That's really such a cool thing, that is. So we'll come back to some of the chat stuff later on. As we're going through, please do pop your questions into the chat, or there's a Q&A box. It kind of doesn't really matter which box you use. I've shut down the chat now, so I'm not distracted by it, but Brian will have a look at that, respond to your questions, and any that are relevant, he'll pose to me at the end of the webinar. So what are these big 4 problems that most MSPs have with their sales and marketing? Well, I've been working with MSPs for 5 years now, and it's really evident to me that, well, it's very likely that you suffer from at least one of these. Maybe the problem that you're suffering from, I've just done something wrong on my computer there. Maybe the problem you're suffering from is that decision makers don't know what they don't know. So when you're talking to prospects and leads and you're talking to them about technology, they kind of, well, as we say here, they don't know what they don't know. You ask a prospect or indeed a client to explain the cloud to you in a short sentence that makes sense. Most of them can't do it. You ask them to explain what ransomware is. They might have heard of Colonial Pipeline, but they don't really understand what ransomware is. And when they don't understand something, they can't therefore be terrified by it. Most of the MSPs I talk to are utterly terrified by ransomware, which is why everyone invests in really good tools. Why don't the clients do this? Because they don't know. In fact, they don't know what they don't know. You've got to remember, and this is a key thing that will run throughout everything we're talking about here, is the clients, the people you want to reach, not only do they not really know about technology, they also don't really care about technology. Sure, they want it to work and they don't want it to be broken and they don't really want to have to spend money on it, but they don't really care about it. It's a tool. It's a conduit to them. In fact, I tell my clients all the time, I remind them that people don't buy technology. They buy outcomes. What you're selling is not technology, you're selling outcomes. And this is really important when you come to look at your website and your general marketing messages. Are you trying to sell people cool tools, or are you trying to sell them a relationship with someone who's just going to take care of it for them, someone who's got their back and can truly be their partner? That's what people really want. They don't know it, but that's really what they want. So that's problem number 1. The second problem that MSPs come across is that the people you're trying to reach are making decisions with their hearts and not their brains. Because they don't understand our world, they don't understand technology, cognitively, they cannot tell the difference between one MSP and another. To them, everyone just does the same things. Now, I understand, I've been in this world 5 years now. I understand that actually everyone has their own unique methodology. So you may do similar things, but you guys all do them in different ways. The clients, the prospects, they don't know that. They cannot know that because cognitively, it's just too difficult for them to process. So when they can't make a brain decision about which MSP to choose, what they do is they pass the decision down to their heart. Put it another way, they are making the decision whether or not to work with you or one of your competitors based on whether or not they like you. All those years of study, all the hard work, all the staying up till 2 a.m., learning stuff, fixing stuff, all the accreditations, the qualifications, it counts for nothing. They're picking you whether they like you or not. So this is why with our marketing, we've got to be more emotional. We've got to put some emotions in it. We've got to have a connection with them. We've got to have engagement with them. We've not got to talk about technology because they are not interested in technology. We've got to talk about their favorite subject. What's everyone's favorite subject? themselves and their business. And that's what we've got to talk about. Now, problem number 3 is that inertia loyalty rules. Now, inertia loyalty is a bit of a double-edged sword for you. What is inertia loyalty? It's when you stay somewhere because it seems easier to stay than it is to move on, or it seems safer to stay. Now, inertia loyalty helps you out massively. You have awesome retention, right? Let me guess, you've still got client number 1 or number 2, even though you won them back in 1863. They've still stuck with you through all these years, and you're probably quite proud of that. Well, most MSPs have still got client number 1 or client number 2. In fact, most MSPs have incredible retention. If ever I meet an MSP who doesn't retain clients routinely for 5, 10, 15 years, instantly I know there's a service issue. Because it's either a service issue or a product issue within that business. All MSPs have great retention. Sometimes it's because of relationships. Sometimes it's because you do a great job much of the time. And certainly with your later clients, when you can't give client number 74 the same amount of attention as you gave client number 1, it's inertia loyalty that keeps them with you. They don't understand technology, therefore it feels easier to just stay with you. So as I say, this is, I mean, you wouldn't want to rely on inertia loyalty as your retention strategy, but this is the way it is. But it is a double-edged sword, because that exact same inertia loyalty stops someone from switching from an MSP, their incumbent MSP that they don't even get on with, stops them from switching from them over to you. Seems kind of crazy, doesn't it? But if you think of it this way, they could be with an MSP that they don't really like. They feel the service levels have gone down. They're just generally not very happy now, but at least they know these guys. They know that when they ring them, they'll pick up the phone eventually, that if they submit a support request, they'll get around to it eventually, whereas they don't know you. They don't know that. They might think everyone's like that. They don't know that you're going to be any better, because everyone says they're going to be brilliant at the selling stage, but what are they actually going to be like at the delivery stage? So inertia loyalty is a real problem. I believe that you have a tiny, tiny window of opportunity with your prospects, and it comes up once every, let's say, 5 years. I say let's say because we don't know this, but the average client, if they stick with an MSP for 5 years or more, and it's only at that point that thinking of renewing the contract, thinking of signing again. And that's the point they're thinking, I wonder if there's someone else better out there. We should just shop around. That's your window. And it's tiny. It could be a 3-day window that happens once in 5 years. You might meet someone today that would be the perfect fit for you, and you would be the perfect fit for them. But if the timing is not right, there's just no point putting a great deal of effort and time into it. People only buy when they are ready to buy. The trick is making sure that you have some kind of relationship with them by the point they are ready to make that purchase. And as I said, that's problem number 4, that people only buy when they're ready to buy. Now, I have a whole series of suggestions to you, and I've got both strategic and tactical assistance for you today. We're going to go over a 3-step marketing strategy that I have recommended to thousands of MSPs around the world. It's at the core of everything I do with my MSP Marketing Edge program that I do with my 500 clients. And it's a very, very simple but smart strategy. So I'm going to tell you what that strategy is, and then I'm going to go back over that strategy and break it down into tactical stuff. And remember, as we're going along, please do put your questions in either the Q&A or the chat. Brian will read them and we will answer any questions towards the end of the session. So, got your pen ready? This is the 3-step marketing strategy to grow your MSP and to get more new clients. The first step is this: you build multiple audiences of people. Now, audience is someone, or people who are in your audience are people who are willing to listen to whatever it is you have to say. So I'm going to come back to this shortly, and we'll go over what audiences you would use and how you would build them. But that's the first step, is you build multiple audiences of people to listen to you. The second step is you then go on to build a relationship with those audiences. Now, this is actually the most important part, and this is the long-term marketing part. But you build a relationship so that at the exact moment that they're ready to buy, they feel that they know you in some way. And it might only be a minor way, but they feel that they know you in some way. So again, we'll go back in a second over how to actually do this. The third step, as you might have already seen, as it flicked up on screen, is to commercialize those audiences. So the commercializing is where you actually turn them into dollars. because it's all very nice having multiple audiences listening to you, but it's much nicer going and buying a Porsche because they are giving you their dollars every single month, and of course receiving a great service for it. So that's your 3-step strategy. Feel free to screenshot that, take a photo of it. I'm going to take it off the screen in a couple of seconds time, and we're going to talk about tactically how do you implement that. Now, what you see here, do not be fooled by the simplicity of this. This is actually the exact same strategy that I use, because I'm not an MSP, but I'm a B2B company as well. I've used this strategy a couple of times in different businesses. I sold a business back in 2016, the marketing agency I was telling you about. We had 12,000 leads in that business, all of them generated using this exact same strategy. We were sending out educational emails twice a week. So that's 24,000 emails a week, generating a couple of thousand clicks a week. And I then had 3 full-time phone people sitting ringing all of those people who'd clicked, and then they were booking appointments for my 2 permanent field salespeople who were driving all around the UK, sitting down with these people. And off the back of that, we were doing £1 million a year, which is about 1.3 million bucks a year. So that's not setting the world alight, but believe me, that paid my mortgage very well for a number of years. That sent us off on some very nice cruises and holidays. And when we sold that business, we sold it for a premium. And then when I started this business, I used exactly the same system. I've got 3,000 MSPs who have a copy of my book and who get my emails. I'll tell you how to get a free copy of my book in a while. We've got 500 plus customers that sign up for our service because we've been able to commercialize those audience. My podcast has had more than 100,000 listens. It's all of these. What I'm going to tell you to do and what I tell every MSP to do is exactly the same marketing that I do. Now, I know I have a slightly unfair advantage in that I'm a marketing guy and you're not. But the rest of this webinar, we're going to talk about small practical things that any MSP can do, particularly when I talk about who should be doing them in your business. Because spoiler alert, it shouldn't be you. You're the last person who should be doing the marketing in the business, which probably makes you very happy to hear that. So let's go back to the very first one, which is about building multiple audiences. There are lots of audiences you could build. There are 2 audiences that every MSP should build. And the first of those is your email database. The second of those is your LinkedIn. So let's look at your email database. Question for you, what data do you already have? Go into the chat if you want and tell us how much data you've already got in your email database. Now, by an email database, I mean, have you got all of your email in one place? Have you got all of it in a CRM, a customer relationship management system? And I'll recommend some CRMs to you in a second. Many times I start working with MSPs and they haven't gathered all of that data together. So the first thing you can do, if you haven't done this already, is you can go off and look around your business and say, where's all my data? This is the kind of the data equivalent of sticking your hand down the back of the couch. For example, in your email, you will have hundreds of emails from prospects over the years, people inquiring, filling in forms on your website, dropping you an email, or my mate told me to talk to you. Perhaps you'll have talked to people on the phone and you've got notes of those, or you sent them out proposals or quotes or whatsoever. All of those people get their email address, pop that into your CRM. What about business cards? Every single person you have ever met at BNI or other networking, get their business card. You can buy a scanner on Amazon for a few dollars, scan their business cards, put their email addresses into your database. Every single email address that you have anywhere in the business, put it in the database. Now, I should add a caveat. There are data protection laws. Of course, we have one here in the UK called GDPR. I know there's some in the US which aren't really that strong. In Canada, you get shot for doing what I've been suggesting here. I mean, the data protection laws in Canada are very strict. So should there be anyone from Canada on the webinar, ignore what I said in the last 60 seconds. But for everyone else, do you know what? I like to operate on the principle of it's better to seek forgiveness than it is to ask permission. Just pop their data in your database. It doesn't matter if they're dead now. It doesn't matter if they hit reply and give you an outburst of angry swear words. It doesn't matter if they unsubscribe. Screw those people. They don't matter. These are prospects. They're leads. They're not clients. I only get worried when clients get upset with us. I don't care if leads and prospects get upset with us. If they get upset, it's because our marketing is working very well at getting an engagement from them. That's what you want from people, is engagement in some way. So grab all that data that you've already got, go and slam it into a CRM. Now, there are loads of CRMs available, just loads. Far too many MSPs first of all, far too many MSPs overthink it. Which CRM should I get is the most viewed article on my website. I find it almost like the PSA conversation. If I allow my clients, because my clients and I, we talk about marketing stuff. Sometimes they'll go off and they'll start to talk about non-marketing stuff. And the most common question there, of course, is which PSA are you using? Which RMM? And which CRM is another one of those conversations. Pick one, stick with it. Because they're all more or less different flavors, different versions of the same thing. Now, far too many MSPs buy a bigger, better CRM than they really need. So if we start at the very top of the market, at the very top, you've got HubSpot. HubSpot is the god of CRMs because actually it's so much more. It's a whole series of integrated tools. I've got around about 20 to 30 clients who use HubSpot. In fact, they formed their own HubSpot MSP Marketing Edge user group, which is brilliant. It's just awesome. And they're all paying around somewhere between $600 to $1,000 a month. Yes, a month. Because the thing with HubSpot is it has all the tools, but every time you turn on any little tool, all of which are useful, it's another $70 a month or something like that. So HubSpot's really good, but you only really need it if you're serious about marketing, super serious. Just underneath HubSpot, you've then got Active Campaign. Now that's a great tool. Much, not all, but much of what you can do in HubSpot, you can do in Active Campaign. Underneath that, you've got Keep, K-E-A-P, which used to be called Infusionsoft. Hopefully, Brian's keeping up with the URLs for these. I use Keep myself. I'm a 10, 12 plus years user. I don't really recommend it because they lost their way. The original management team got ousted and now they're back. And the guys that ran it for 2 years from the venture capitalists made some stupid decisions and they're trying to merge two products into one. You know, all that messy stuff. We are so embedded into the Infusionsoft, the Keep system that we can't leave. Literally, we have hundreds of campaigns and it would cost us about $20,000 to move to a different system just in like transitioning. And half of it wouldn't work afterwards. So we're kind of sticking with it. It's still good software, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to brand new people. And I don't see MSPs signing up for it currently. Now, those are kind of the premium end. Then you've got down at the more budget end, MailChimp is brilliant. MailChimp is the answer for 80% of MSPs. It is just the best CRM to use. It scales with you. It's free / low cost. It's very mature. It's very stable. And do you know what? You can get started on MailChimp. And if you outgrow its automation and its tool set, you can always transition to Active Campaign in the future. That transition from MailChimp to Active Campaign. In fact, I think Active Campaign has a concierge service where you can just give them $1,000 and they'll just do it for you. They might even do it for free. So, don't jump straight in Active Campaign. If you're genuinely getting your first one, go for MailChimp. The alternative to MailChimp is MailerLite, L-I-T-E. There are hundreds more. You've got Zoho CRM. You've got Honey CRM, which is apparently an MSP specific CRM. Haven't yet met an MSP that uses it. If you do, please tell me in the chat because I'd love to talk about it. And there's lots of others out there. Pick an MSP. Don't go with Microsoft Dynamics, please. Have more respect in your marketing than that. But pick a CRM and just go with it. And the first thing to do is to go and put your data in there. So putting all of that data into the CRM gets you started, which is brilliant, but you need to keep growing your email database. There's two ways to do this. First of all, anyone you speak to anywhere goes in the database. You meet them, you shake their hand, you elbow them, whatever we do these days, get their business card, talk to them on the phone, get referred. They just put them in your database. Don't think about it. Don't get worried about it. Just stick them in your database. The database will just grow by a few names every week or every month, which is brilliant. But the other thing you can do is something called data capture using something called an ethical bribe. Now, data capture is where you ask someone to join your email list. And no one really wants to do this, no one at all. So you have to offer them an ethical bribe. Here's an example of an ethical bribe. And I mentioned my book. Here's my book. It's called Updating Servers Doesn't Grow Your Business. As you can see, it's a physical, proper paper book. We give copies away at paulgreensmspmarketing.com. Now, if you're based in the UK or the US, we will physically ship a copy to you. We have a couple of thousand copies sat I think it's in Chicago, Illinois. We will physically post that to you within a few days. If you're anywhere else in the world, then we will just send you a PDF. But what this is an ethical bribe. I give this to you in return for you joining my email database. And we get around about 10 to 15 MSPs a week doing that, which is just brilliant. You can do exactly the same thing. Here's an example of one that I give to my Marketing Edge clients. It's a book. It's exactly the same kind of book as this, but it's aimed at ordinary people. It's called Email Hijack, and it's about how an ordinary business owner goes on vacation, comes back, and his email has been breached. Someone's been sitting there watching it for a while. Invoice goes out to a big client, and then they send a fake invoice, a fake. No, hang on, get it right, Paul. You wrote the bloody story. That's it. The invoice comes in from the supplier, and then the hacker sends a fake second email saying, oh, by the way, our bank details have changed. So the accounts person pays the whatever it is, the $10,000 to the wrong bank account. And then of course the company's $20,000 down, aren't they? Because they've paid the 10,000 to the hacker, and then they have to still pay the original bill. So that's what the book's about. And then in normal language, it talks about, what you can do to avoid something like that. Now, the idea of this is it's actually a positioning tool more than anything else, because you can put your name on the front, because we only work with one MSP per area. So you can put your name on the front, and now you're the published author of a book about email security. Which is just brilliant. And then you can give that away on your website to people joining your email list. So there's lots more that we could talk about with building your email list, but I want to move on and talk about LinkedIn. Now, with LinkedIn, you're looking to make 10 to 20 new connections a day. And LinkedIn has changed the rules most recently. I can never remember the exact numbers because I'm not quite across that level of detail. I have a marketing manager who does all my tactical marketing for me, so I can just focus on strategy and big issues. But up to about 3-4 months ago, LinkedIn was all about quantity. In fact, if you look at the history of LinkedIn, when it was first launched, LinkedIn was your online representation of your offline network of people you knew. Then Microsoft bought it, and Microsoft did the classic Microsoft MO, which is, hey, how can we make this the market leader? Because it is now the leading B2B social media network. And Microsoft basically copied Facebook, or they were inspired heavily by Facebook, in the same way that Teams started off as a version of Slack. That's how originally it started. Obviously, it's become so much more than that since. But LinkedIn and Facebook, obviously they have different algorithms, but they act in very similar ways, right down to if you post a piece of content and the more people like it, share it, and comment on it, the more people see it. That works in exactly the same way on both Facebook and LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn, it used to be just a free-for-all up until a few months ago. And now LinkedIn, they're sort of pushing it back in the box a little bit, and they want to focus now on quality, not quantity. So you could previously add hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people a week if you had the sort of a premium account, a Sales Navigator account. I think the limit now, I'm not even going to give you a figure because it will be wrong, but you can Google it. But certainly now it's a much, much smaller limit. And the recommendation now is that you only try and make quality connections, not just go for quantity connections. Now, the question to ask yourself on LinkedIn is, who already has your audience? Who already has your audience? And can you then go and borrow that audience from them? For example, I live in the UK, right in the middle, outside a city called Milton Keynes. You'll never have heard of it. We only built it 50 years ago. In fact, it's the only city in the UK that was built on a grid road system, because they built it from scratch, and which makes it awesome to get around. And I live in a tiny little village just on the outside. And there is a guy near here called Mark Orr. And Mark is connected to about 20,000 business owners and managers in this area. Now, I'm not interested in business owners and managers in this area, but if I was an MSP, I would make friends with Mark. I would connect to Mark on LinkedIn. And then I would go and look at his connections and connection request them. Does that make sense? So you find in either your area or your niche, your vertical, who has got the connections you want, connect with them, and then go and look at their connections and connect with their connections. By the way, there is a setting in LinkedIn to stop someone doing this to you. You can actually set your LinkedIn so that no one can steal your connections in the same way. There are automation tools around. There are tools such as Dux Soup, DUX-Soup. I think their time has it might possibly be over. We were using DuckSoup up till 3 months ago, and then we ditched it because of these new rules. DuckSoup is saying, oh, we're very valid now. We're still valid, but you have to automate with extreme care. We've actually found it more robust because these automated tools, I should say, they're technically against LinkedIn's terms and conditions, but they were really useful because they automated human behavior. So they worked as plugins in your Chrome, which meant that LinkedIn couldn't block a server, IP range. So that it didn't know when you were using an automated tool. But we think they have developed the ability to detect, there must be patterns in the way these automated tools work. We've actually switched to using a virtual assistant doing the same work for us. So she goes in and tries to make connection requests each day and messages people, essentially doing the same work that DuckSoup was doing, but at 10 times the price and half the speed. But the results we're getting are just fine. So we're quite happy to do that. So you can automate, but please do automate with extreme care. Okay, so building multiple audiences was our first step in our strategy. Building a relationship with them was the next and most important step. And what we want to do in building a relationship with them is we want to do two things simultaneously. We want to educate them and we want to entertain them. And let's put those together. It becomes edutainment. So we do this through content marketing. Content marketing is the best way to build a relationship. And it might feel like everyone's doing content marketing at the moment because all the vendors are giving you content marketing, and you've got services like mine, and I have competitors, and I'm sure you're on your competitors, other MSPs email lists. But just because there's lots of content marketing around doesn't mean that you should do it. This is absolutely one of the best ways to build a relationship with prospects. In fact, there's a great book I can recommend on this. It's called They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. This is the best book I've ever read on content marketing. And in fact, I think as much as what I'm talking about here is a great sort of short to medium term plan, this is your long-term plan, your long-term marketing plan for your business, because it's all about dominating your marketplace through content. Go and get that book. It's a great one. Now, I recommend that with your content, you do stuff daily, you do stuff weekly, and you do stuff monthly. So daily, you post on social media. And yes, I mean every single day. Social media content is very disposable. It's just kind of gone quickly. And most of what you post isn't ever really going to set the world on fire. But importantly, it means you have a presence in people's feeds. That's really important. If you haven't got social media, go ask your vendors if they provide social media, or say you've got services like ours. There's lots of places to get social media content. You could hire someone on Fiverr to write it for you. And what you're looking for is sort of canned social media content, sort of 5-6 days a week, probably 5 days a week. So the kind of content that's just links to other things and just about technology news, but written that is of interest to ordinary people. And then once or twice a week, you want to put some of your own content on, something which is a bit more interesting. What we find is the more personal you are in your social media content, the better. Then weekly, you want to send out an educational email, not a sales email, an educational email. Teach them about the things they don't know, which is everything. Be careful with using phrases like cybersecurity. No one cares about that, but they care that their data is secure. It's little word changes can make quite a difference, and you want to educate them about things they really don't know about. And then monthly, I suggest you send out something some printed direct mail. The very best thing for this is a printed newsletter. And printed newsletters are expensive, they're hard to do, they're difficult. You've either got to outsource it or you've got to do it in-house, and there's lots of stuffing of envelopes, but nothing beats printed stuff. Nothing. It hangs around. If you could see my desk here, I've got big piles of books here. I've got big piles of newsletters and papers and bits and bobs here. I'm not a cluttered person at all, but because these are useful resources for me. Printed stuff hangs around. People read your newsletter on the toilet. If someone meets you today but isn't going to buy for 2 years, you're not going to remember them. But if they're seeing your social media content now and again, they open one of your emails now and again, and they get a newsletter, even if they get a newsletter from you once a quarter, the chances at that point at which they are ready to talk about switching MSP, the chances of them talking to you are so much higher. And this is why relationship building only ends when one of three things happens. Either they buy, they become a client, or they die, they're gone, or they say to you, bye-bye, as in they have unsubscribed out of your marketing at all, which is fine. Don't be scared of people unsubscribing. Be scared of people not engaging in any way. You want them to unsubscribe because you only want to email people who are willing to listen to what it is you've got to say. So we've got just a few more minutes on this, and then we'll take some more questions and stuff. So building multiple audiences was the first step of the strategy. Building a relationship was the second, and the final one is commercializing that relationship. Now, what I mean by commercializing it is turning them into money. And the easiest and best way to do this is telephone intervention. So I mentioned to you that at my previous business 5 years ago, we had 3 full-time telephone people just phoning people. Now, they weren't telesales. Their outcome was to book an appointment for one of my salespeople. Will you excuse me a second? I just need to have a quick drink. I'm talking too much. Would you believe this is my 3rd webinar today? It's incredible. It's the webinar season. So those 3 telephone people, their job was to book appointments for my physical salespeople, but they weren't ringing up selling. They didn't know anything about the product we were selling or anything like that. They were ringing people up, moving the relationship forward. So they typically rang the people who'd clicked on the emails, because you know those people are alive and active, unless of course their emails are being scanned for threats, which does cause false clicks, but that's a minor problem. So they were ringing those people, and they were just having a relationship conversation. Tell me about your business. How are things going for you guys right now? If they were using a competitor, they'd say, and this is a great one to write down, on a scale of 1 to 10. Where 1 is awful and 10 is world-class, what score would you give your current IT support company? That's a great question to ask, because if someone answers 10, 9, 8, there's no opportunity there, and there won't be for some years. They're happy. In fact, that's the score you'd want your clients to give you. If they answer 7, 6, 5, there's a level of dissatisfaction there. There's a switch coming up at some point. Get an appointment booked, get in to see those people. And if they answer 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 or minus anything, they are in deep distress now. Go and see them today or tomorrow morning, because seriously, they are, whether it's a short-term thing or a long-term thing, they are very annoyed, and you can jump in and see them. So those telephone people I had we were just calling and calling and calling and calling. You can do your own version of the same thing. You don't need a full-time telephone person. In fact, for most MSPs, that's overkill. That business I had back then, we needed to win a certain number of clients every month because we only had 12-month contracts, whereas you keep people forever. So you only need, in fact, you probably only want 1 new client a month. That's what most MSPs want. Give me 20 or 30 new users a month. Just to onboard them is enough work for a month. So you don't want lots of telephone people. Do you know what you probably want? A back-to-work mom who can work around school times, be flexible, work from home, logged into your VoIP system, and work 2 to 3 hours a day, 2 to 3 days a week. And that's it. And who are they calling? They're calling people in your email database. They're calling people you're connected to on LinkedIn, other audiences that we didn't mention earlier, things like your YouTube channel. You can have a podcast. You can have other social media. Even if you just stick to those 2. How many people are you connected to on LinkedIn right now? 500, 1,000, 2,000. Well, there's 2,000 people for your back-to-work mom to call. And they don't need to know anything about technology. They're not selling anything. They've got the same outcome that my telephone people used to have. They're looking to book a 15-minute video call with you, because that's actually the next step. Before you jump into a physical meeting, a proper sales meeting, if you can, if that's COVID safe for you, the initial thing, the thing that your back-to-work mum is trying to do is to book a 15-minute video call with you. And then you are the one that does the difficult work of asking them about a business and their technology and all of that. That 15-minute video call, when it goes well, it lasts for 40 minutes. And you want that to be the case. You want you to be so caught up in them and them to be so caught up in you that call goes on and on and on. And that's off the back of that call. That's when you say, hey, look, why don't we get together? What day are you free next week? And I can come over, have a look. Lovely to meet you. And we can put a proper proposal together. That is a very good sales funnel. So we've got our full 3-step strategy there. I'm pretty much done with that. So Brian, if you wanted to jump back in and take over, and I'm happy to answer questions on this subject.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'll pop back on to my screen, and then we'll switch over.
Cool.
Cool. So I just wanted to mention, because again, this is brought to everyone today by Unitrends MSP. And, I know we're often considered the best kept secret in the backup space for MSPs. So, we hear an awful lot about the challenges that MSPs have with regard to their backup. It's fragmented. It lives in a lot of places now, and it's under attack. That's been going on for a long time. Backup solutions have been the target of ransomware. And, that costs a lot of time for MSPs in managing the different solutions and troubleshooting and testing their backup solutions. And look, backup is also very expensive. So we really think that, at Unitrends MSP, we thought these things through for you guys. That's why we bring you this great content about how to increase your sales, because we want to be the solution behind that. And we've solved these problems to help you be more complete, more secure, to know that you can manage your backup solutions in a very quick amount of time every day. Your engineers aren't tied up managing different solutions and testing those things. We've automated a lot of the important steps of managing your backup solutions, and we've priced it out to be very competitive in the marketplace. In fact, we're told we're often about a third less than our competitors, and we've got the most integrations out there. So, just something to keep in mind as you guys are asking questions here today. We definitely want to get to that. So I'm going to jump right in, but definitely think about it in your business, in your MSP, how you're handling backup. And we'll get right back here to Paul. And look, don't forget, as we're doing this, you're going to get a survey at the end. We just ask that you fill it out and you'll get a chance to win a $50 gift card. So with that, I wanted to turn it back over to Paul here, and I'll hang on here with you, Paul, and see if any questions.
Yeah, there's a few that have come in here. If I can, I'll just jump in and answer them if that's okay. So John Paul says, no, sorry, not John Paul. Michael says, we have thousands. So I guess he means thousands of people, but they're in a ticket system, and some from clients we no longer want to work with or communicate with. Completely get that. Firing clients is a good thing. I think the only answer to that one, Michael, is you've just got to do it the hard way, which is someone manually going through and dredging them. The thing you've got to, you look at that and it feels like a massive pain. It's actually a massive opportunity, a huge opportunity. And, if you've already got thousands of emails, well, put it this way, when I start working with an MSP and they've got nothing, that perhaps they're a brand new startup, which doesn't happen very often. It's a lot harder to get started with nothing. Whereas if you've got even a few hundred, even if you just spend a couple of hours one day just dredging out a few hundred, you're more inclined to send an email out, an educational email, if you're sending it to a few hundred people than if you're sending it to no one. So it would be worth going through the pain of that. John Paul asked, HubSpot, did I say 6,000 a month? No, I said that would be insane. God, I'd love a business that could charge 6,000 a month. Wouldn't that be great? It's most MSPs find they're paying around about 600 to 1,000 a month for HubSpot. So you can actually start free on HubSpot, but they're just really good at every time you want to switch something on and you want to switch all the toys on. That's when they sort of charge you some more. And John Paul also asked Keep, K-E-E-P. It's actually K-E-A-P. Or if you Google Infusionsoft. One of my biggest frustrations with Infusionsoft is that they change the bloody name. You don't change the name of a 15-year-old product that's got the most unique name, Infusionsoft. So they changed it to Keep, and no one talks about it anymore. But then Brian has put the URL into the chat. And Michael's just asked one more question. Paul, thank you. You look and sound great. Thank you very much, Michael. Do you mind showing what you're using for your mic and camera? I don't mind at all, Brian. If you don't mind me going technical for a second, I have spent the last year perfecting my AV setup. So I have a stand-up desk, which is from IKEA. And it's one of those that goes up and down. And I always stand up to present, because I used to be a radio presenter. One of the tricks that radio presenters use is they always stand up. So if you're doing any presenting or any kind of video calls, stand up and make your AV setup stand up. So I physically can't sit down to present. I've got an old Canon 70D, EOS 70D camera, which is actually my old camera. So my business bought me a brand new digital SLR camera. Thank you, business, so that my old one could become my webcam. And you have to do a bit of fiddling around to turn a digital SLR into a webcam, but basically I've got like a permanent battery goes into the mains. You can find this on Amazon, and I've got I think it's called Camlink, but it's a special thing that goes into like the HDMI, or I think it's in the USB, and connects up into my laptop. And then you have to then just have like a driver for it. So I use some software called Ecamm Live. Ecamm Live is really cool because it allows me to do some very cool stuff on screen, and I can bring in special effects and play all sorts of things. I'll just show you. Where's my special effects button?
Oh, I'm
Here we go. So
here,
this is cool, isn't it? So, for example, this is my cliche. I don't know if you guys can hear that actually, because we're on Zoom. But anyway, so there's all sorts of stuff, and I can put borders around me, and that's not working now. Why isn't that working? Oh, there we go. I can put borders around me and bring all sorts of things. I can go over to PowerPoints and do all sorts of cool stuff like that. So that's Ecamm Live. That's what's running it. Then I've got a Blue Yeti. So this is my Blue Yeti microphone, which is right in front of me. And again, I've turned all the, sorry if there was a bit of noise there. I've turned also the gains down, because it's literally right in front of me, because that's a thing from my radio days. The best radio DJs are really close to the microphone, and this is as close as I can get without distorting it. And then the final thing is lights. So I can't show you because I can't turn my webcam around, but I've got 2 LED lights, one on either side. I'm actually standing in front of a massive window because I work from home and have done for the last 5 years. I have a massive window with great daylight. If we were doing this webinar about an hour and a half's time, the sun would start to go down. And you wouldn't notice, because these lights are programmed to the same Kelvin temperature as sunlight. Now, this is my equivalent of rubbing my thighs, because the Kelvin temperature of sunlight is what the lights are set to, and the camera is set also to exactly the same Kelvin temperature. So everything matches up. So the only way you would know it was becoming dark is, well, you can probably see there's some sunlight on the wall behind me there, and also you'd see it getting dark in the window behind, but otherwise I would stay perfectly lit. All in, perhaps it's cost me about $500. Not a massive investment when you think how good it looks. So thank you, and thank you for that, Michael. John Paul says great company historically, Infusionsoft, yeah, no, that's it. And Michael says he's an adjunct professor, so this is huge. I don't know what that is, Michael. Tell me what that is. I'd love to know what that is. But yes, thank you everyone for your questions. And for being here on this webinar. It's been awesome talking to you this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. And, great advice for MSPs all around. And I put links up on the screen, and as well as in the chat, for folks to visit us, our mutual websites, as well as our LinkedIn profiles, to connect with us. And you're right, video is so huge with all the web engagements that we have today. So, it is important to have a good setup. In fact, Unitrends set me up pretty well here too, with a similar thing. In fact, we were talking about that just yesterday.
Yeah, so we were geeking out about it, weren't we?
Yeah.
It's good.
I love tech. It's certainly a passion of mine. So, and again, if anyone has any follow-up questions, we're gonna have a survey at the end, of course, to give us some feedback on this event. This is another Unitrends MSP live event. So please fill that out for us so we can get you entered to win a $50 gift card. I don't see any other questions coming in. So I guess without further ado, I'll let everyone off to the rest of their day.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. Cheers, Brian.
Thanks, Paul. Take care. Thanks, everyone.